So I'm very pleased that our speaker today, Dr. Richard Koral, is well known to this society since I think he joined within like a year or so of my joining. He and Regine were also married by the same ethical culture leader as my wife and I were, so there's long roots here. Richard currently is the leader for the Long Island Ethical Society. It's the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island and Garden City, and he's also one of the leaders at the New York Society for Ethical Culture in Manhattan. Richard attended the Humanist Institute, holds a Doctor of Ministry degree in Interfaith Pastoral Counseling, as well as a degree in law. And he also served as president of the American Ethical Union, which is the umbrella organization for ethical societies in the United States, for 3 years, 2012 to 2015. And he's also been the president of the board of this society, among other various roles. And so we've been missing Richard terribly these last years while he's been working other places on Sundays. But we're very happy to have him here with us today. So Richard's topic today is gratitude as practice. So please welcome Richard to the podium.
This thing works. No? Okay. Well, hi, everybody. It's really a delight to be here. I never get here anymore. 2019 is the 30th year since we first joined the society. So a big part of our lives has been centered around this building and you folks. So it's really a delight to be back here. And I was suffering from a little bit of separation anxiety since I started working at the New York Society and then now at the Long Island Society. The Long Island Society is interesting because it's exactly like this place. Same size, community, and as the building, similar size to this. And there are so many corresponding people, like I can name it. This is the gym of their society. So in a sense, I have a new family over there. And New York is very different. New York is much more programmatic, so they have committees. They have committees with agendas and with minutes and chair people, and it's very different. But it can be fun, and it's great to be appreciated. So I keep doing this. So I should say I'm very grateful to this society for all that it's given Regine and me over the years. And I'll be talking about gratitude as a thing, gratitude as a specific trait. I started thinking about it last November, and of course November is the month of Thanksgiving, so it's like an official month. And did you know that National Gratitude Month is November? I mean, how many people knew that there's a National Gratitude Month? Yeah, well, it could be forgiven. It was only in 2015 that someone declared it. Actually, there are about 30 different things that November or any month is the official month for. I don't know who makes these declarations. It's hard to say that gratitude has much of an industry behind it, to lobby for such a thing. Maybe the thank you note industry. But gratitude as a unique concept, as a practice, does have a lot to be said for it. It's coming into its own as a factor of positive psychology. There's much to be said about the nature of gratitude by itself, apart from the things that one might be grateful for. So Thanksgiving is a recognition of this in a way, and it was made a national holiday back in 1863. So that year there was not really a lot to be thankful for specifically. The country was in its darkest days of the Civil War. But Lincoln seemed to observe that we needed to invoke a sense of gratitude in these darkest times for the country. So he reached back into a mythologized past of earliest colonial America to find something around which people could share a common bond. So that it was based on gratitude is interesting to introduce a dimension of grace. Probably every culture in the temperate zone has a fall harvest festival like Thanksgiving. Traditional Gregarian societies who've experienced crop failure, a meager larder with which to face the winter, knew to be grateful in those years when the harvest was good. Thanksgiving is an opportunity to exercise our gratitude. So what is gratitude? It can be a transitory feeling of indebtedness, a compensation for a favor received, or it can be an enduring attitude and an approach towards living, a deep and abiding recognition and an acknowledgement that goodness exists, even with the worst that life can offer. People who report feeling grateful and appreciative also report feeling more loving, forgiving, joyful, and enthusiastic. So what I want to explore is how these feelings can be formed or encouraged through actually a discipline of gratitude. In fact, scientific studies, gratitude is not always a result of happiness. It often precedes and produces happiness. Gratitude has been recognized by ancient thinkers as the key factor in happiness and satisfaction with life. So it's not really a recent discovery. The Roman philosopher Cicero claimed that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. Epictetus, the great Stoic, wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." A grateful person will count her blessings. That means a person who recognizes and reiterates the positive things going on in one's life will counteract, override the typical patterns of depressive thinking. This attitude can lead a person to reorganize his or her self-schema and realize, hey, I'm not a loser after all. Depressed thinking dotes on the failures. Troubled marriages are characterized by counting more complaints than positives. Some say that couples have a positive ratio. They have to have a positive ratio. 5 good things to 1 complaint. By consciously choosing to count the good points and outscoring the negatives, a marriage can be strengthened. So many people who've missed a bullet, overcame a serious disease, survived a crash, saw a loved one recover, all have big reasons to be grateful. And we tend to reserve our gratitude for the big gifts, the things that we may not have earned. But there's so much to be grateful for. It doesn't need to be reserved for the big stuff. It's the small stuff that makes up our lives. A Templeton Fund survey found that most people just do not express their gratitude. So they found 94% believe that those who are grateful lead more fulfilled and richer lives. Yet fewer than half people do express gratitude on any regular basis. So why don't people simply express it? Einstein said that he reminded himself 1,000 times a day how much he depended on other people. 97% of the people were found to express thanks to a restaurant server, but fewer than half said they expressed gratitude to a spouse. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it, someone once wrote. The humanist psychologist Abraham Maslow wrote about the importance of expressing gratitude towards a benefactor. It's important to both to the grateful one, for whom expressing it fulfills a burden of reciprocity, and the benefactor, who may appreciate recognition. Maybe the problem of low rates of gratitude is habituation. We get used to things, so even the most wonderful things become humdrum, like humdrum, ho-hum, another morning in Hawaii. Shiny things get dusty, new discoveries get old. You don't remain in a state of perpetual excitement. Good things are normalized. To be more alive to what we have, we need to reawaken a sense of joy, by using gratitude to reevaluate and appreciate anew the things that we have. Proust once said that discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Sometimes we need to look once again with fresh eyes and realize the wonderful richness that is in our lives now and our potential for more growth. So maybe it's less about what you have or where you are and more about how you respond to it. Grateful people have a way of reframing what happens to them. They look for the positive, they make things fit into a positive worldview. Hamlet once said, "There's nothing that's either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Ben Stein, the comedian and actor and economist, probably the only funny economist in the world, once said, "I cannot tell you anything that in a few minutes will tell you how to be rich, but I can tell you how to feel rich, which is far better, let me tell you firsthand, than being rich. Be grateful. It's the only totally reliable get-rich-quick scheme." Well, we tend to harp on the negative things, the frustrations, the inadequacies, the empty half of the glass. So why is that so? It's said that evolution made us this way. Psychologists call this ingrained trait a negativity bias. It's an adaptation that makes us wary and alert to danger. By focusing on the one bad berry in the basket, we'll avoid being poisoned, and that way we'll live on for another day. But because of it, we can't overlook the joy of the berries that were good. Negativity, caution, a long memory for flaws, faults, and dangers serve the cause of survival. But by remaining in the zone of self-defense, we're drawn into a pessimistic framing for life. We neglect to recognize the good that we enjoy. There is so much to be grateful for, even if we normally take it for granted. If one were simply to look at the basic things life offers, well, there's life itself, the greatest natural achievement of all, the fact that we're even here. We're grateful for having emerged from the mud and the minerals to walk around. And the fact that one planet at least, this very planet actually, had enough ingredients for the minerals to come together just so and permit life to emerge. Today we live in a time and a generation that is the richest and the healthiest, the best fed and the longest lived in human history. Yes, we complain of challenges in distribution and sustainability, but those are problems of wealth and wise management, not a problem of privation. And when there is no abundance, can we still be grateful? Must we wait for the riches? There is a Buddhist proverb that goes, "Enough is a feast." Just enough. That's enough. We really have so much to be grateful for. There's music, there's chocolate, green fields, tall trees, there's art, and for the lucky, there's love. There's every distinct present moment. As Maya Angelou wrote, "This is a wonderful day. I have never seen this one before." So are people grateful because they're happy, or are people happy because they're grateful? Embedded in that question is the dilemma whether one has to achieve a status of happiness first in order to earn the right to be grateful. Our society, with its consumerism and pressure to achieve, makes us strive to gain higher standings, more money, more certifications, more status, and like payback, we agree that we'll then show our gratitude once we get there. Get something first, and then you'll owe something. You'll have something to acknowledge, and then you'll owe a payback. Like people often say that through charitable giving, they're giving something back. Well, experience as well as scientific research shows that this intuitive formula is not really accurate. People who are grateful, no matter what they have, and who are grateful for whatever they do have, they are the happier ones. They're more empathetic, more generous, more secure in their skin. The Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology, surveying the literature, concluded that gratitude may have the highest correlation to mental health and happiness of any personality trait. Grateful people have more positive ways of coping with the difficulties they experience in life. They are more likely to seek support from other people, reinterpret growth from experiences. They're less likely to avoid a problem or deny there's a problem, and spend more time planning on how to just deal with a problem. Less apt to blame themselves or cope through substance abuse. Grateful people have coping strategies that are just less negative. So, how can you be more grateful? Grateful living can be a daily practice, just as mindfulness or compassion are practices. It's strengthened by learning to focus our awareness on the great fullness of the moment as it is. We can intentionally direct our attention towards what is already here, what is working, what is enough. You practice gratitude by recognizing and expressly honoring the positive things in your life for which you are grateful. And tell people you're grateful for what they do for you. Now, some people who are organized and methodical will keep a gratitude journal. Every day they'll write down, say, 3 things for which they are grateful. So that's primarily the practice. Author Janice Kaplan wrote about living a year with purposeful gratitude. She said that she went through times so dark that all she could write was, I am grateful for having 2 arms and 2 legs. But she doggedly persisted and wrote even that down, if that's what it was. And so she wouldn't miss a day. Every day she would recognize something that she was grateful for. And she reports that it transformed her life. It brightened her outlook, improved her health, lowered her blood pressure, and enriched her relationships. So what exactly does this do? This exercise, this practice of gratitude, enables a person to strengthen his or her inventory of good memories. According to a Harvard neurologist, Alvaro Pascual-Leone, practicing gratitude and positive feelings expands the brain's capacity for positive thoughts. And this serves to counteract the more normal sensibility, the default sensibility, the one in which you exist in a constant state of defensiveness, conscious of risk and on perpetual alert. Remember how our evolutionary experience tips us over to highlight the negative. These instincts are not always helpful in letting us navigate the circumstances we confront in today's world. Our system benefits from some intentional adjustment. So you ask, how can one practice gratitude in the face of tragedy? Isn't this just a fair weather pastime, not suited to the challenges of real life? Where do you go, what do you do when there's nothing to be grateful for and much to resent? Well, in research done by Dr. Robert Emmons of UC Davis, whose book entitled Thanks was the basis of a lot of what I'm speaking about today, he asked people who suffered from neuromuscular diseases and other awful degenerative diseases to perform gratefulness exercises. Well, in his typical experiments with college students, Emmons would divide his subjects into 3 groups. For one, he had them keep a journal of positive experiences, things and experiences that they would be grateful for, as we said, 3 items a day, and pursue it for a period of, say, 3 months. A second group would make a similar list, but they would list irritations and complaints, 3 a day for the same 3 months. And a third group would not make any list at all. So all three groups would be given a standard mood test. In every instance, the group that listed the bad things that happened to them declined in happiness measurements at the end, while the group that concentrated on recognizing positive things would definitely be happier at the end. Those who did not make a list showed no change. So these results were remarkably consistent in his research. So how about those suffering from those awful degenerative diseases, whom you expect to have nothing to feel grateful for, rather a great deal to be resentful about? He divided them into two groups: those who made a list of things for which to be grateful, and a second group who made no such list. He mentioned how some of the researchers were hesitant or embarrassed, really, to even ask these patients to list positive experiences for fear for appearing disrespectful or even cruel. But amazingly, these patients responded by finding and celebrating their small victories, the gifts of kindness they received, the moments of self-discovery. Tests were made of people who suffered other tragedies, such as people who lost children to sudden infant death syndrome, and the results were the same. By taking the time to enhance and refine one's perception of beauty, by appreciating the kindness of others, recognizing the things of value once taken for granted, by focusing on the positive, they were able to enhance their optimism, empathy, patience, and generosity towards others. One builds happiness. Brother Steinel Rast, who's a Benedictine monk who may be the world's foremost expert in gratitude, he actually has an institute somewhere in Switzerland of gratitude, wrote this: "Times that challenge us physically, emotionally, and spiritually may make it almost impossible for us to feel grateful. Yet we can decide to live gratefully, courageously, open to life in all its fullness. By living the gratefulness we do not feel, we begin to feel the gratefulness that we live." Conceiving gratefulness as a posture towards life enables us to see how it can be tested and strengthened through adversity. Unless you're practiced in gratefulness, you won't have the skill when adversity arrives. You can see the contrast in the role played in society these days by the daily headlines and the way it affects people. The news industry has been guided by the age-old principle that alarmist news, murders, disasters, dangers sell more papers and gather more eyeballs. Clearly, bad news keys into the alarms and alerts that we're all naturally primed for with our negativity bias. As a result, the news has us draw up a running inventory of bad things, irritants, complaints, and dangers. In what New York Times media critic Jim Ruttenberg calls the incitement industry, entire industry composed of Fox News, conspiracy websites, Facebook pages, it has grown up to exploit this weakness in people with the propagation of news manufactured for alarm. And this alarmist news has become totally untethered from reality. There's no longer a need to have any constraint for truth. It's just about pushing the same buttons, and enough people will react with the predictable alarm bells. They talk about the Clinton body count, the Clinton pedophile ring in a pizzeria basement, the 30,000 Clinton emails. Clinton was so useful for this, which is wonderful, how they could build an industry around it. Or how that liberal Jew George Soros is underwriting an invasion of the United States by diseased Middle Eastern terrorists from South America who will take your jobs. Negativity bias will impel enough people to believe it and become fearful and alarmingly defensive and reactive, and some will be inspired to violence. Well, all of us share these tendencies towards fear and defensive reactions, but we do not have to be slaves to our passions or to jump when the same old buttons are pushed. Being ungrateful correlates with anxiety, depression, envy, materialism, and loneliness. We can release ourselves from the whirlpool of negativity by purposely reminding ourselves of the good that there is and relieving ourselves of the burden of reactivity and negativity. So what are the implications of all this for our thinking about the larger questions? That gratitude, the feeling, the attitude, its expression is so integral to our happiness, to our sense of self-worth, to our ties to others with whom we live, shows how deeply embedded in us this emotional bond we have between each of us and the circle of community that surrounds us. The complex interchange and the exchanges we make in our daily lives reflect the interdependence that our health and our happiness are built on. Our modern society has fostered a myth of our own personal self-sufficiency. The strong and independent, the separate individual has been held up as the fundamental building block of humanity. For many people, it takes a major setback like illness, disability, or death to challenge this illusion of self-sufficiency. But in fact, we're so deeply dependent on others, always in relation with others, and these relationships are vital to our well-being. Our psyche knows it, even if our conscious mind denies it. Happiness is not found inside ourselves alone, and the practice of gratitude helps us reaffirm this interconnectedness that supports our lives. In this profound sense, gratitude is not merely an attitude or a virtue. It is the very force behind compassion, because life is a network of interdependence and mutuality, out of which our very being is constructed. Thank you.